Hi, Jake.
Hi.
How's it going?
It's going great.
Yeah? Here we are at South by Southwest with
Yeah.
Brand Innovators.
Yeah.
Super exciting. Nice to meet you. I mean,
My pleasure.
we had a phone conversation before, but it's our first time meeting in person.
Mhm.
And I'm excited to talk to you.
Me as
I
well.
think we're all fascinated by the customer journey at Amazon and your experience in it. So yeah, I wanna talk about a few things, but first I want to talk about you
Yeah.
and your background and kind of your journey into Amazon. So my favorite question to ask everyone is, what is your superpower as you would describe it?
Yeah, absolutely. So I can jump in just quick on myself. I have now 15 plus years of experience, and that's in marketing across CPG and tech. Very different spaces, but the consumer kind of journey and consumer marketing is the throughput, I would say. Um, in terms of my superpower, I can fly.
Ooh.
No, if only. Um, Generally speaking, I would say it's relationship building
Okay.
and really kind of anchoring that on trust. And I learned very early on in my career that the power of one or N of one can only get you so far. So you want to bring others along for the ride. And so I liken it to steering the rudder of a ship. And it's much easier to steer that rudder when you have others along for the ride versus trying to do it yourself. And so as the ship grows as well, then you want more people to come along for the ride with you. And so large matrixed organizations, this skill is very, very useful and helpful. And so building that trust again across teams, across marketing teams, cross-functionally across the org, working with external partners and agencies, that's really been beneficial. And I think that's something that I've tried to drive forward throughout my career.
Love that. I just got a beautiful image of rowers, right? And you at the helm and everyone rowing in unison and your partners on your sides.
Yeah,
right.
absolutely.
I love it. You made a large transition from, well, large transition in a way, but you're focused at Amazon on grocer, right?
Yeah.
So, but that transition from CPG into Amazon, tech commerce giant, I'm sure that there was like a lot of learnings in that. What was your biggest surprise in that journey?
Yeah, I mean, the pace of work, I would say, and the pace of deliverables and conversations that are had are almost a complete 180. And so with CPG, it's very principled, and you have the ability to focus and make larger decisions, and those take time typically. But with tech, you're not allowed that time. You kind of have to move very quickly. And so the skill really comes into understanding two-way door decisions versus one-way door decisions. So with two-way door decisions, you can move quickly without necessarily losing much by taking a pause. But with one-way door decisions, I find that that's where the pause really makes sense. And that's where I can take a step back because there are larger implications to something like a big brand decision on what kind of ethos or what's the brand campaign that you're actually driving forward. And so in that regard, I try and leverage the principles that I learned in CPG and then combine them with kind of this new fast-paced, new edge approach with tech. And to me, that's where the magic happens, is where you try and combine the two and come up with something that's truly unique.
Yeah, amazing. Do you find that you're in a space now to take more risks in your work?
Oh, yeah. I would say one of the beauties of working in tech is the ability to test and learn. And that's huge. And it kind of gives you this incubation period to really, go big on an idea. And then if it does not work well and you fall flat, then you just pick yourself up and you keep moving. And so risk taking is necessary, especially because in tech, everything is so fast moving and ever changing that any individual decision or campaign doesn't necessarily translate the next week, the next month, the next year. And so you have to take risks, and sometimes they pan out and sometimes they don't. But the ability to test and learn allows you to do that in a very short window or time frame with limited impact, and then you can scale whatever works and then start growing from there.
So you're probably not sleeping much, but you are having fun on that roller coaster ride of risks.
Absolutely.
I like it. Amazon is obviously famous for being obsessed with the customer journey, as are you. I know that we spoke about that. And what are you seeing in terms of all of the changes in the industry today that's, impacting or affecting that customer journey and how it's evolving pretty fast, right?
Yeah, ever evolving every day.
Yeah.
I think the way consumers discover products has definitely shifted. It's less linear than it has been historically, where a big brand campaign launches on TV, and then you discover a product on shelf, whether in store or digitally, and that was it. Currently, the way that customers discover products is much more broad, and so there's social media, ads, creators, influencers. And then you have personal recommendations on top of all the different disparate sources of ads that still historically have existed with TV and radio, billboards, et cetera. And so brands now have to be very careful and pointed in terms of showing up in all these different levers, and making sure that it's not just at the point of purchase or even just at one awareness campaign that they show up, but rather throughout the full life cycle of customer journey of consideration for customers. And so that's definitely something that I think keeps evolving. Mm-hmm. And you have to figure out a way to break through the noise, because there are so many ways to reach consumers that authenticity becomes very key and important in that regard.
And yeah, obviously, right. Because the customer journey has evolved into, right, this like kind of circular framework. It's more challenging to figure out the attribution of what actually affected that sale.
Yeah.
I know that, well, actually, let me start here. Where do you think that brands get that wrong the most?
I think brands that focus largely on point of purchase in terms of driving and influencing a decision have kind of missed the mark already, because you need to get customers before. Many times now, whether it's a physical space or digital space, customers show up to the point of purchase already having largely made the decision. And the point of purchase can be an avenue to sway a decision or get that conversion, but it can't be the main point of influence, let's say. And so brands that show up earlier in the journey and more upper funnel across these disparate ways of reaching customers, I think those are the ones that win. Because then it puts less pressure on that point of sale conversion tactic, whether it's an offer or a coupon, an ad, something like that. That allows for a more balanced approach, I would say.
So you told me that you're speaking on a panel, I think, is it today?
Tomorrow.
This afternoon or tomorrow.
Yeah.
On hype marketing versus performance marketing, which I think is such an interesting panel, an interesting subject. I am now 10 years in creator marketing, and creator marketing has almost brought those two worlds together, right? Where a really great hype campaign can actually drive bottom line results.
Absolutely.
And, there's been some really interesting recent examples, what Gap is doing with artists like Young Migo. I'm just obsessed with what they're doing. The latest, like McDonald's CEO tasting the burger, which is kind of, to me, more like chaos marketing.
Yeah.
And then sometimes brands totally miss the mark, right? American Eagle with Sydney Sweeney, although did that miss the mark? Did it drive sales? We don't really know.
Yeah, exactly.
What is your take on hype marketing versus performance marketing, and we were talking about attribution before, but how do you think about attributing bottom line results to something that maybe came from hype marketing?
It's a great question, something that we tackle and battle with all the time. You need both, and many times brands try to focus on one versus the other, or lean more on one versus the other, and that very much shapes their overarching outlook on marketing and strategy. And so if you just lean on brand marketing, for example, then how do you tie that back to actual results? It's not very much scientific in that regard. It's more a kind of gut feel. But then on the flip side of it, if you just focus on performance marketing, then it limits your ability to capture and drive demand in that regard. And so to me, we've tested combination markets where you have both brand and performance versus performance only markets, for example. And the combination markets pretty much always win out. And the reason is you need brand to drive the demand of consumers and drive that awareness, and then performance is needed to capture the demand. And so when you have brand driving something forward and then performance capturing that demand, it makes the performance marketing more efficient. And so that actually is a much healthier funnel of driving something forward, rather than stating, well, let's just do performance marketing because we can see the tangible impact. Sometimes you have to drive the intangible to make the tangible that much better and stronger and more impactful. And so I think you have to have both, and the brands that win are the ones that know how to effectively drive something from beginning to end.
Yeah.
And so if you're driving, some kind of an ad that's specific to creators and a chef that's plugging a recipe as an example, once a consumer sees that ad, then goes onto Amazon.com, for example, searches a product within that recipe, the recipe should then be fed to that individual through a easy, frictionless shopping experience, and then have them build the full cart based on that recipe. So now you're creating a full funnel approach where you're not just trying to drive awareness, you're actually building a sale at the end of the day.
Yeah, I can't agree more. I think that one of the biggest mistakes I see in brands is when those two departments don't work together. It's insane, but happens all the time, especially in creator marketing. Let's do a little future scenario. If we fast forward 3 years, what are brands potentially not thinking about or preparing for that it is going to be part of the customer journey? What are they not thinking about yet?
Yeah, I wish I knew the definitive answer to that, because 3 years from now, who knows where we'll be. But I can certainly kind of provide my POV there. I think we're definitely going to be less reactive and more anticipatory. And so that means driving recommendations based on consumer behavior, personalizing at scale. I think it's easy to say that now for a lot of brands, but whether they're actually hyper-focused on the approach to do so, that's a very different story. And so the ability to actually leverage information, use tools like AI, for example, big buzzword, but how do you leverage AI to actually personalize something and bring something to consumers that solves a need that right now we're just very much more reactive, I would say, in the marketplace, versus anticipating someone's need, building it based off of their prior behaviors, and then recommending something that actually solves a need, whether the customer knows they have that need yet or not. And so that's the future state that I think we're all building towards.
Yeah, can't wait. I can't wait for AI to make my shopping decisions for me.
Exactly.
Oh, well, it was such a pleasure, Jake. Thank you so
pleasure.
much for spending time with me.
Of course.
Yeah,
Thank you so
fun.
much. This was great.
Thanks, brand innovators.